Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite. I am your host, Jim Chapman, and we've got kind of a treat for y'all today. We have an in-studio guest, and it was someone who we did a podcast regarding what's going on with her, I guess you could say, a couple of episodes ago. I think it was the 8th that we dropped that podcast. And she's here today to kind of discuss her side of the story. And these people are actually human beings. They're not just stories, and they have a lot to say. And so we're going to sit down and talk to her today. And I'm talking about Miss Ivana Williams. So first of all, welcome to Exposed.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're no stranger to podcasting.
No.
You've been behind a microphone once or twice.
Once or twice, yes.
Very good. And of course, we covered your I don't know if I'd say your case, but what's been going on with you recently. And I reached out to you, and I thought it would be a good idea to have you on and just maybe expand on some of that, and also tell people a little bit about you, who you are. Obviously, you were a law enforcement officer in the state of Mississippi.
Yes, I was for quite some time.
And we had a conversation that it's Mississippi Highway Patrol there. Right. Probably a couple times during that podcast, I referred to it as state police because I'm from Louisiana, and that's what we have. We have the Louisiana State Police, but they're a little bit different, but similar in that you patrol the interstates, I guess you could say. Right. A lot of it. You offer executive protection. Do you do that as well?
I have done classes, or I've done a class, but for executive protection, and I've done a few details, but we have an actual division with the Highway Patrol that was executive protection, and they guard the governor, lieutenant governor, and a few other people.
The college coaches?
They do. They guard the coaches, and if any dignitaries come into the state and they need somebody to escort them around, then a trooper will be assigned to that detail.
You were born in Pearl City, Mississippi.
Well, that's where I'm from. Okay. So there's actually no hospital in Pearl. So I was born in Jackson. Okay. Which is right next door to Pearl, Mississippi. Okay. But yes, I grew up in Pearl, and now I live in Brandon. I have a store in Pearl. I know you had mentioned that last podcast. It said in Brandon. It's actually in Pearl.
Oh, I got you. Okay. And how far are those from each other?
They're not far. They're neighboring cities.
Yeah, kind of like Baton Rouge and Denham Springs, maybe. Right. I got you. Okay, very good. You're a smart girl.
Oh, well, thank you.
Criminal justice, a master's. What was it about law enforcement? And let me say this before you answer. You're female. Mm-hmm. Law enforcement still to this day, and I think it's gotten a lot better, obviously, but still to this day, probably more of a male-dominated field.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And, you say it's gotten better. It probably has, but in the Highway Patrol and smaller areas in Mississippi, you just don't see any women. Yeah, really? I worked Rankin and Simpson County whenever I was with the Highway Patrol, and they had maybe one female in Rankin County, and that was not when I first started out. That was only recently. Yeah. And I was with the Highway Patrol for 6 years. I never saw a female on the road. Within the last year, maybe 2 years, they have had a female on the road. And only one.
Really?
Yes. Same thing with Simpson County.
That's
maybe
interesting.
One female.
Why do you think that is? Is it they're not applying, or is it, do you think it's still, kind of stuck back in the older generation, I guess you could say? Oh,
definitely. The mentality of a female can't handle themselves, especially when it comes to counties, because you're out by yourself. It's almost like being a state trooper. You're not with, other city officers where you guys are within a few hundred feet almost, of each other. And so I think a lot of sheriffs are a little bit worried about it, but I don't want to say it's by no means what I have done with the Highway Patrol, but as far as me going into the Highway Patrol and seeing, hey, there's a female that works in Rankin and Simpson County by herself, and she's a female. She can do it. Why are we not hiring females for our county?
Yeah, that's right.
No, so I don't want to say it was me, but it was just after I became a trooper, then a few years later, that's when I started seeing females in the counties I was working.
Very interesting. And so why did you specifically get in? What was it about law enforcement?
Well, I never would have expected me to be in law enforcement. I always wanted to go into marketing.
Yeah.
Sports marketing. I always grew up playing sports and trying to compete with my brothers, and I wanted to end up going to the New York Yankees and work for them because I have family in New York and New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And it just didn't really work out that way. So I ended up getting my bachelor's from Mississippi College in business, BSBA with a marketing emphasis. And I had my first son when I was 21, right before I graduated, and got married, and my dad had a heart attack. And so I grew up having to travel back and forth to New Jersey to see my grandmother only like once or twice a year. And I didn't want my son, if I were to move up to New York, I didn't want him only seeing his grandfather, my father, once or twice a year. So I started looking at other options and started looking into sports marketing in Jackson area. Well, as you can imagine, there's not very many sports marketing jobs.
Yeah.
So I was working at Mississippi College as a dispatcher and for their public safety department.
Yeah.
And the guys in there, they're like, well, you're into sports, you're real athletic. Why don't you apply for the highway patrol? And I was 21. I was like, what's the highway patrol? And they're like, oh, it's really hard. It's not many women get in. Not many men can even make it. Marines have gone in and not made it through. It's a 50% dropout rate. They yell and scream at you all the time. I was like, I think I can do that.
Yeah, sounded like a challenge.
So
Love it.
I couldn't find any other job. So I was married at the time, and I remember going up to my husband, and I already had the application filled out and everything. And I said, we were at Arby's. I remember everything. And I said, hey, what do you think about me applying for the highway patrol? And he sat back and he thought for a second. He said, that's fine. You won't make it. And so ever since then, it was like, well, watch and see. Because you got to remember, I had brothers growing up, and I always competed with them. And so now I'm married to a guy that, I feel like I have to prove, my worth to, prove that I can do stuff just like the boys can. And, I was still interested in the first place. He was a police officer for Pearl. And I was around him, from 18 to, whatever. I'm 31, 32 when we got divorced finally. Yeah. But so I saw what he did. I thought it was interesting. I thought it looked fun. I started going to classes at Mississippi College. Let me back up a little bit. My first year was at Moorhead, which is Mississippi Delta Community College. Yeah. My freshman year, and they have a police academy on campus. And so I played soccer at Moorhead, and I would see all these recruits for the police academy going around and, running and doing the push-ups and all that. I was like, okay, looks interesting. So the next year, my sophomore year, when I went to Mississippi College, I started taking electives in criminal justice.
Yeah.
So not only was it really easy for me to pass those classes because they were interesting and fun, but it's just I actually enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed learning about different narcotics and about behavior, police behavior, and, all the criminal mind and all of this stuff. So my minor, even though it wasn't official, it was criminal justice.
Yeah.
And when I graduated and I went to my husband and asked him, and he's like, oh, you're not going to make it. It was, game on at that point. Because not only was I already interested in it, it was, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, that's right. I can relate to that 100%. Tell me I can't do something and watch. Right. I used to tell people, hold my beer because I'm about to make it happen. Those type of things are motivators to people, especially people that are athletic, that are used to competing. You want to motivate them, tell them they can't do something.
Right.
Watch. And, so you were an athletic person. You played sports growing up.
Right.
Competed, things like that. Okay. And you're pretty tall.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you can't tell someone's tall, online unless they're standing next to somebody. How tall are you?
I'm 6 feet.
6 feet. Yeah.
And it's funny because people on social media don't believe me. And I've already said it, a
yeah,
few
she's
times.
6 feet, y'all.
And they're like, oh yeah, 6 feet with your boots on. I'm like, no, really. Like I'm 6 feet tall. Like my family's tall. Just good genetics, I guess.
Well, I saw, and I'll shout out your TikTok right now. And incidentally, we're going to link her social and stuff like that in the description of this podcast, so you can go straight to it and check it out. But I saw you were shooting basketball in one of them. So yeah, I knew you had some sort of athletic ability for sure.
Oh yeah. So I've played basketball, soccer, softball, swimming. I was on the swim team.
Wow.
Not very good at that one. Great at swimming, just not great at competing in swimming.
Yeah.
Because I do everything very gracefully, is what my coach said. And I remember him saying, "You're a graceful swimmer, but you're not fast."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, maybe this is not the sport for me. Yeah. But I did track, cross country, high jump and track. I've pretty much done everything. If you tell me, let's go play something, I can probably play it.
That's pretty awesome. Very good. So you get interested in the highway patrol and you join the highway patrol. You make it. Was it as hard as everybody was saying it was?
Well, it took a while to get there. It took me 7 years to get in.
Oh, wow.
So back in the day, it was usually about every 3 years they would have a class because they just didn't get the funding for it.
Right.
And so I applied for class 60, and then 3 years later, so class 61, 3 years later, class 62. So it was like 6-7 years to actually finally get in.
Yeah, you were very persistent.
Oh, yeah. And in between that time, I worked for different law enforcement agencies in between having kids. So I would work somewhere, get pregnant, get out, go back, get pregnant,
Right.
And one of the times I actually ended up having 3 boys at home, and I stayed out for about 3 years because it was cheaper just staying at home with the 3 babies than it was to go to work for law enforcement, because you're not going to make any money. So by the time you paid for daycare, you're actually paying to go to work, So I just stayed home, and then during that time, I ended up getting my master's because I'm not the type of person that just sits home and just sits still. Even though raising 3 boys is a lot of work, I still was like, I want to do something. And I always wanted to get my master's in business, but I barely made it through accounting. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not going to go take a master's level in accounting. So I was like, I'll get my minor and go with that. And so I ended up, Homeland Security just opened up as actual program instead of a certificate, like a lot of people believe it is. And so my dad was working at Mississippi College at the time. He's like, you should go do this. I was like, okay. It gave me my master's that I always wanted. It was not that business degree, but it was something that I was very interested in. And so I actually studied a lot about Parchman, which is the prison system in Mississippi. And a lot of people think if you have a master's, you're very educated, which you are, but you're only really educated in that one particular field.
Yeah, you're an expert in that, whatever it is.
Yeah. But so I sat out for a while, and then worked at Brandon Police Department, where I live, right before I applied to the Highway Patrol. And so I was with Brandon for a little over a year, when I started with the Highway Patrol in October, but you can't claim you work for the Highway Patrol until you graduate. So I went to the academy October 29th of 2017, and then I graduated March 6th of 2018. But that's the official start date. That's the official day you became a trooper, and you can start your retirement, all that beforehand. You're just kind of like a contract worker.
Gotcha.
But for 6 months, I was in the academy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and how proud were you when you were able to accomplish that and you're official?
Yeah.
Proud day for you?
It was huge. I had already gone through basic academy for police department, and that was at Melota, which is Mississippi Law Enforcement Officer Training Academy. And I don't want to say I enjoyed it by any means, but it was one of those, taught me a lot. And I remember people saying, well, what do you think the Highway Patrol Academy is going to be like? It's called patrol school. I was like, well, it's probably going to be the worst day at Melota, but every day for patrol school. And I was right. The worst day at Melota was every day at patrol school. So it was very difficult. It was one of those, what did I get myself into type situations. However, I had wanted it for so long, 7 years.
7 years you've been applying. Yeah.
I had wanted it for so long. I didn't care what they did,
Yeah.
what I had to do. I was going to finish. I didn't care. And everybody says, oh, I'm not leaving unless they carry me out in a body bag. That's like the typical thing people say, right?
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that, of course, but it was, I hid that I was hurt. So I didn't go on light duty type of situation. I'm trying to think of what the actual word is, but yeah, I wasn't restricted by anything. I already came in and I wasn't just 100% in shape. You know, I was in shape for me,
Yeah.
but in shape for what they want.
Yeah,
you to
that's
do.
a whole different shape.
Yeah, I was not in shape. I was working out in the morning. I would get up in the morning, go run 2 or 3 miles, go to work, come back, and that's a 12-hour shift. Come back home, you know, take care of the kids, and then go run, 8, 9 o'clock at night again, another 2 or 3 miles.
And you just said a mouthful before we gloss over that, and that was take care of the kids.
Yeah, and that was 4 kids.
So you had that added responsibility onto, or in reverse of most guys they're waking up and they're just going to train.
Yeah.
And all those sorts of things. I mean, that's a big deal. That's a full-time job by itself.
Yeah. And I mean, back then, so we would either have my mom come watch the kids, so we didn't really have them in daycare or anything.
Yeah.
Or we'd pay for a babysitter if both me and my husband at the time was working. Mm-hmm. But we usually had like opposite shifts and stuff because he was a police officer, I was a police officer. But I did everything I could to get ready for patrol school.
Yeah.
And it was still not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just remember in there that I had done so much research and saw all the videos of the prior patrol schools, and I had heard all the stories of how if you get hurt, they kick you out. And so whenever I got hurt, I didn't tell anyway, because I was worried that they would kick me out. And I also didn't want to be on any type of restriction because I was already not in enough shape for what I needed to be. And so I didn't want to, I know myself, and I know if I'm like off and I don't run for 2 or 3 days, I'm worse off than if I were to just continue to go, because I guess my metabolism goes so quickly, or I don't know how I build muscle. I have no idea. But I wanted to continue to do everything they did. And there was one time I did remember I had to tell them. And I use it to my, I guess, strategic advantage because it was almost Thanksgiving and we were going to be off for like 3 days. Mm-hmm. So we only had like 2 days there for that week, 2 or 3 days. And so Monday morning I get up because we have to report Sunday. Yeah. And we're already doing PT Sunday, Monday morning doing PT, stuff like that. So Monday morning I remember getting up and I couldn't walk.
Oh, wow.
And I was like having to like hold on to, the bunks and stuff like that to try to walk. And I just told the ladies that I was with, I had 2 other females with me. I was like, I can't do it. And so I ended up having to kind of just wake up because in the morning it's a little bit harder,
Sure.
So I got kind of going a little bit and I could actually walk, but I couldn't go more than probably like a foot ahead of me because it was my groin area that was messed up.
Yeah.
And so any like stretching of my leg was excruciating pain.
Yeah.
And so I had to walk across the place, but I told the ladies, I was like, please just go ahead and tell them what's going on so that way they're not yelling at me the whole time while I'm walking across to get to the male barracks. And so they did that, and I had to go see the doctor and all that. And I was terrified that I was going to get, kicked out, all that. And he's like, no, I know you want to be here. We're going to take this and use it to our advantage. We're going to put you on restriction for 2 days. The 2 days you're here, that way you have another 3 days. So you have a whole week to rest. So I did that, and I remember like the Tuesday, I'm over here doing like arm rotations. Do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I was doing arm rotations because I was on restriction and stuff like that. Yeah. And all the guys were out at the flagpole, and anybody from Mississippi is going to know what that means. So I was out at the flagpole, and they were doing push-ups and, any type of mountain climbers, any running drills they could think of, whatever. They were being tortured, right? Mm. And I'm over here just doing arm rotations. And I had the lieutenant that was over training come up. And, he said this all the time. But he's like, Williams, you're pathetic, like constantly. Mm. And that was, it wasn't the first time, but I felt pathetic.
Yeah.
Because here I am, like all these guys out here are getting it, you know? And I'm not with them. And so, yes, I still use that because it was the last day before Thanksgiving. So I still used it to my strategic advantage to survive. But after that, whenever I came back, I had to go to the doctor and, make sure everything was clear, all that. I was still hurting.
Right.
And he's like, how you feeling? I was like, oh, I'm fine.
Oh, you good. 100%.
Because I much rather be out there doing what I can do with my guys than doing arm rotation.
Yeah.
How
many females were in there with you?
It started out with about 5, and so very quickly 2 of them left.
How many men?
5 or 6, actually. 2 of them. So it actually was 120 altogether. And so there was about 5 females.
Wow.
Yeah, 120, and then we ended up graduating 56.
56?
56 men, women, and so 3 women out of 56.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So,
interesting.
And it was it was a lot of hard times. You're just thinking, like, how in the world can you make it? Like, I remember one time we were doing a 3-hour, and I'm not exaggerating that, we were doing a 3-hour, like, PT session.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to get people to leave.
Yeah.
Like, they even said it. They're like, we're not stopping until we have 5 more people quit.
Yeah.
I'm like looking around. I know it's not me, so I know, like, how much longer can we be here? Because I'm not quitting.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping somebody else quits because I want to get done with this. But at the same time, it's not going to be me quit.
Sure.
So
love that.
Yeah, it's just it taught you a lot. A lot of people think, well, why go through such a hard academy? And that's been the big controversy over in Mississippi is why is patrol school so difficult compared to regular law enforcement academy, especially whenever they say, oh, state troopers only write tickets and work recs, right?
Yeah.
And state troopers do a lot more than that, but that is their primary, job that day or in their shift. If you're a roadman, you go write tickets, you work recs.
Sure.
You're called to anything else with, down the road as far as if a hurricane happens, a tornado, if there's a domestic case that's going on the road or off, on the side of the road, you're dealing with that. You're dealing with murders that happen on the road, things like that. And then later on in your career, you become an investigator. You're dealing with a lot more issues and investigations and stuff like that. But a regular trooper, you work tickets. You work recs and write tickets.
Yeah,
but
and you're experts at it. Unbelievably impressive that you were able to get through that. And one of very few females, but one of very few people, forget female, male, half the people quit.
Yeah. Yep. That's a 50% dropout rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was saying. The controversy is there. And, patrol school teaches you a lot more than just write tickets and work recs. It teaches you about life. Yeah. Teaches you how to survive and how to make it. And when you think you can't make it and you can't go on anymore, you remember what you're taught in patrol school, and it helps you.
Yeah, throughout it's a life lesson.
Oh yeah.
Well, if you can get through that, you can get through anything.
Right.
And people in the military, same way. A lot of times, especially with like special forces duty and stuff like that, you go through a good SEAL training. And pretty much nothing else you get thrown at in life is going to equal that. And so you know that. Is it everything you thought it would be? Was it?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
So when I was in patrol school, a lot of the troopers would say that you guys that have been at counties or cities, you think you got attention before, you're going to get 10 times more attention. You're the boss on these scenes. You are the one in charge and the one everybody will come and run to, right? And I was like, what an egotistical, TAC officer, right? Because I was a police officer before, and I was like, that there's no way, it's law enforcement's law enforcement, right? When I put on that uniform and I started working, I saw the difference.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, oh, that's just because you're brainwashed. No, when I have been on both sides, local law enforcement and a state agency. And I've seen what it's like, how you're treated on both sides. Now, I was treated always good every time, but it is a completely different environment, and you have to be your own boss. You don't have a supervisor you can call every time that's going to be right around the corner. You've got to figure it out, and make a decision and stick with that decision. And so it was very different. I definitely enjoyed it because I wasn't stuck to a city, right?
Yeah.
I got to go to the state games, the Mississippi State games, the Ole Miss games.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I got to be on the field,
Yeah.
Who can say that they got to be on the field during a game? And it's just an incredible experience. There were so many things I had opportunity to do. Escort details, being able to travel the state, being able to be that first responder anywhere in the state,
Sure.
If my husband at the time, or ex-husband now, so he still works for Pearl Police Department. And it was one of those like, okay, the storm's passed. Yeah, maybe for you, maybe for Pearl, nothing happened in Pearl, but the storm hasn't passed out of Mississippi, so I'm still on call.
Yeah.
So it was one of those huge difference, and you just have to be there and experience it to really understand it. I can tell you all day long it was a difference, but just like I once thought of that egotistical trooper who thought they were better than everybody, no, it really is the truth.
Yeah.
And you won't know it until you see it.
Right. Very interesting. So, let me ask you this. You're going through and you're a road, what do you call it? A road deputy, I guess, or a road trooper?
Oh, roadman.
Roadman. Okay. Yeah. So you're a roadman. You're out there and look, y'all, that's dangerous work. Because you don't know if you're pulling someone over, if they don't have, 500 pounds of cocaine in the back of their car, or you may just be pulling them over for speeding.
Right.
And that person may not want to go to jail that day. And so to me, mad respect to you and all the people that do that you'll approach a vehicle and you're doing what you're trained to do, and driver's license, registration, you're going 900 and a 200 or whatever. What was it, November of 2022? Yeah. You and a friend go out.
Yeah. Well, I guess everybody, has heard your previous podcast and all that. And so, I've been on the news and social media and podcast and all over. And for 6 years, I never got in trouble, never was wrote up.
Yeah.
I was on a billboard for the Highway Patrol.
Yeah.
I was on their recruiting team, Mounted Patrol, SOG team, which is Special Operations Group. I did everything I could for them.
Yeah.
If they needed me to change a shift, guess what? I changed a shift. I took care of it. It didn't matter if I already had plans. I figured out how to help the Highway Patrol.
Yeah.
And so I did everything I could. And was there little hiccups, missing court, something like that? Yeah, every single trooper will miss court here and there.
Sure.
And it's not on purpose or anything. You just have so many different counties you go to, especially coming from a city department to a state agency. I was used to one city.
Yeah.
And they had it on the board of when you go to court. Most of the time you're working anyway. They scheduled it where you're working. With the Highway Patrol, you have multiple counties you work and multiple courts you got to go to. And some are on Tuesday and some are on Wednesday, some are on Thursday, some are at 9, some are at 1. And so whenever I first started, I was like learning everything. And so I say that to say that, yes, I have hiccups, but I never was wrote up for anything.
Sure.
Never have been disciplined, nothing.
Yeah.
And always was in Troop C, which is Jackson District, and never had any issues. Yeah. Never had any complaints. I actually had accommodation letters for how nice I was on traffic stops.
And that's impressive.
Yeah.
And no complaints. Look, everybody's pissed when they get a traffic ticket. Even Ivana would be pissed if she got a traffic ticket. But for people not to complain about that ever in that amount of time is pretty impressive in my book.
Yeah. I remember going up to the clerk one day at Justice Court, to maybe sign off on some citations or something. And she said, we get phone calls about you all the time. I was like, oh, why are they complaining? They're like, no, they want to say how nice you were on your traffic stop.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I remember her saying that to me. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is.
And that was just me. That's me as how I was in law enforcement is because I treat you just as good as you treat me. Even if you are having a crappy day and you're mean to me, I'm not going to let my ego stoop to your level. I'm going to keep that level head. I'm going to continue to be me.
Yeah.
Because you were just pulled over and I don't know what's going on in your life. You know, I don't know if you're running late to work because you have a sick parent at home that you have to take care of by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's going on. And honestly, you going 10 miles, or my limit was 15 to 20. But, you know, at first it was probably 10. I'm not going to lie. I was probably that typical trooper. You're not going to speed on my highway.
Yeah.
But I was still nice about it, you know. And although I still gave out citations, I was always very, you know, courteous and kind because I don't know what that person's dealing with in their life. And my job is not to make them pay something.
Yeah.
My job is to protect them.
Yeah.
And that's why I got in law enforcement, is to protect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never had anything going on. And then, like you said, November of 2022, supposedly an incident happened.
Yeah.
So the reason why I say that is because how all of this started, how I was fired, everything. And yes, once again, I can't say everything, but I was brought out in the news in last November. And a lot of people think this is a new story. It's not. I've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah.
So last November 2023, I had an article brought out about me in a gossip column in Jackson area. And the highway patrol, of course, found out about it. You know, I go through internal affairs, you know. And even prior to this, I actually was at the Attorney General's office. So this woman accused me of some very heinous stuff.
Yeah.
And I go to the AG's office and they're asking me, you know, what's the story? What's this about? And I tell them, you know, they even Mirandized me.
Now, when they called you in there, did you know any of this was coming out? Did they just call you out of the clear blue one day and say, hey, we need to talk to you about something? Or were you already aware that this girl had?
Oh, I was hearing rumors. I mean,
Okay.
everybody hears rumors.
Okay.
But yeah, so only thing I had to talk to them about is just rumors. you
Yeah.
know? But anyway, I talked to them about what was going on, and that was in August, and then November comes around and this article comes out, and it is extremely embarrassing. You know, it didn't have my name at first, but everybody knew who it was. Because like I said, there's only one female in Rankin and Simpson County.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's only one white female in the entire state.
Yeah.
And it didn't say that it was white female, but it talked about living in Brandon and all that. And
Yeah, it wasn't hard to put two and two together.
It wasn't too difficult.
Yeah.
So it was extremely embarrassing. And it's just one of those, I had to deal with it, and I couldn't say anything because I was working for the Highway Patrol and they speak for me, you know? So I just had to be quiet. And I had
That drive you crazy?
I wanted to like scream to the rooftop, like, I didn't do this,
Yeah.
you know? Like, but I had an attorney buddy of mine. He told me, he's like, Ivana, it doesn't matter how much evidence you present to the general public, half of them are never going to believe you. It doesn't matter what you tell them.
Right.
They're going to think
Yeah.
something's like, there's some type of cover up, there's something. And who really cares? You know what you did and you know what you didn't do. So don't worry about it. Just be calm, be still.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's what I did. I didn't, say anything on social media and all that. And then December comes around and she ends up putting a filing and temporary restraining order on me in Chancery Court. And that was December of 2023. And so that's when I actually finally saw what she is claiming is going on, like
Yeah.
actual document, because I have not been able to see a document this entire time.
Wow.
And so I finally saw this document, and she claims that, I hurt her in November of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And this is now December of 2023. So she decides to do a temporary restraining order. on
Yeah.
me. Now, I don't get served these papers
So
until
that's a
like
year
February.
and a month.
Oh, yeah. And so it's another month or so until I get served these papers for the temporary restraining order. But in the meantime, I get transferred with work December 29th, and I had until January 2nd to go to Troop D, which is 2.5 hours away from my home. I only brought home $2,400 a month. Okay. So you have to pay mortgage, utility bills, gas, car insurance, all of this stuff on $2,400 a month. And now I'm being transferred 2.5 hours away from my kids, from my house, from my job, my business that I just moved locations. I hadn't opened up yet. And now I got to pay for more gas because I don't want to miss out on my kids' lives.
Yeah.
And I got to pay rent up there, got to get more furniture, all of this. Because I had furniture at home, of course, but that wouldn't make any sense for me to move that furniture to the Delta. And then whenever I am home with my kids have nothing to sit on,
Yeah, right.
Or no dining room table to eat at. And so I had to go buy new stuff. And I only had 7 days to file a grievance.
Yeah.
And I sent an email first. I did not want to have to file a grievance. I didn't want to have to go through all of this. I do not, a lot of people are like, oh, keep fighting. You're a fighter. I really don't want to fight anybody.
Yeah.
I don't want any of this. I'm not an aggressive person at all. I would not hurt a fly. The reason why I've done so well in law enforcement is because I communicate and I talk to somebody with dignity and respect, know, and that's gotten me a lot further than trying to be aggressive and have my ego like, oh, you're going to do what I say because I say do it, right? So they never responded to the email, and I had to file a grievance. And 32 days after I was transferred and 26 days after I filed a grievance, that's when they came up with, oh, well, you violated these policies. So, a lot of people have sent me the Stell Cracker. Is that his name? The Louisiana trooper?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually know him pretty well.
So
yeah, he's cool.
They have sent me a podcast that he did, and it sounds so familiar because I did not violate any law. I have not been charged criminally with anything. They said I violated policy.
Yeah.
And the reason why I continue to fight is because just like I've been telling people on social media that I'm innocent and I will prove I'm innocent, it's not going to be a me versus them. It's going to be court will determine, and I'm going to let court proceeding show my innocence.
Right.
So that's another reason why I don't just get into everything is, yes, I have court, but also everybody doesn't need to know every single detail because guess what? They're not going to believe it anyway.
Yeah.
But if I have court that backs me up, well, then that's saying something.
Indeed. No, I agree with that 100%. And so you get called in, you're in the AG tells you, here's what's going on. Then the state police, or not the state police, but the Mississippi Highway Patrol in your case.
Yeah.
These are your people, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are your brothers and sisters in law enforcement. And also the people that you work for. And you would think they're going to have your back 100%. And it just seemed like maybe.
Oh, it was more of, in my opinion, it was an embarrassment. And they were hoping it would just go away. They ship me off and I stay there and I stay quiet. I don't say anything.
Yeah.
Or I just quit. And I'm not a quitter.
No, you're not a quitter.
So
I can tell you that.
If I did something wrong, I would own up to it and be like, you know what? I'm going to take my punishment. I'm going to roll on out, but I didn't do anything.
And that would have been the easiest thing to do.
Oh yeah. If I would have been,
this would probably be over with by now.
Oh, absolutely. I would have still been in the Delta and I would have been doing my thing and nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
But I have been trampled on throughout my life a lot. And you would think that I would have such a bad attitude, but I don't. I just know that you got to pick your battles. And I was actually talking to a trooper the other day that, we've been good colleagues for a number of years. And throughout this whole time with the Highway Patrol, anytime they would be like, oh, well, you didn't go to court. Well, what about the other 20 troopers that didn't go to court either? Why are you looking at me more than anybody else? Or, oh, you posted on social media. Yeah, so did this trooper in his Speedos.
Yeah.
That's, getting ready for a competition. Did you say anything to him? No, you didn't.
And let me just fill people in on that because I saw that post that you had put, TikTok that you had put, and so Ivana was approached by someone in her job, I guess you would say higher up. And this higher up said, you can't really be posting pics of a bikini on the internet. And Ivana's like, it's a bathing suit, and I was at a pool.
Yeah.
And so this guy's like, yeah, but I mean, you can't really be. And she's like, well, let me ask you something. What if I'm a guy, like a lot of state troopers out there, and I'm at the beach with my family, and I'm posting a picture, and I'm in swim trunks or Speedo, or I don't roll with the Speedos, but if you are, same thing, right?
Yeah.
And the guy didn't really have a whole lot to say to that, because it is a good point. And look, that is a big proof of the double standard in law, and not in law enforcement as much as in life.
Yeah.
I mean, but law enforcement, it directly relates to, in this case, you're at a pool, and you're in a bathing suit, which is absolutely normal, and everybody is there is in bathing suits, and you're getting criticized for it.
Yeah.
I was told you can't do it.
Yep.
That's crazy.
There's a lot of cases like that. And
That's sad, though. Yeah. It really is.
I had a female trooper who retired, and she told me that being a female in law enforcement, especially with the highway patrol, it is like being a female on the football team. Mm-hmm. Okay? You don't really hear of it, right? There are females out there on football teams now, right?
Yeah.
But she said it's like being a female on the football team. Nobody really wants you there. But not only are you on the team, you are getting the attention of the quarterback. Like you are the quarterback.
Yeah.
You are getting the attention as the quarterback. So all the eyes are on you. And,
yeah, they're waiting for you to do something to screw up.
And so I have come to realize that is the best quote. That is the best analogy.
That's actually
I have
a
ever heard.
Really good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I had another female that retired with the highway patrol. And she told me, she's like, there's a lot of beautiful women in the world. There are not a lot of beautiful women that are state troopers. And so you will get a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on you. And that has been definitely true. Some good, some bad. And it's just things that I have to deal with. And I'm trying to deal with it as best as I can,
I think you're doing a good job of it. I can't imagine that. Look, that's a lot of pressure. You're under a lot of pressure. I mean, quite frankly, and you roll through it. It's amazing how you deal with it. Most people fold under pressure. Strong people, very strong people, almost thrive under it. I put myself against corners sometimes and back myself against walls, and I really do, because I am best under pressure. There's no doubt about it, and sometimes it's to my detriment. But you seem very calm for someone that is under such a microscope right now. And look, not only from the process of your job, but also from the process of your reputation. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got people out there, and they're doing everything they can to try to ruin your reputation, to try to you get horrible text messages, for example. Right. And these are horrible, and I'm not even going to go into what they are, but you're handling them with grace. There's no doubt about it.
Well, it hasn't always been the best. So, we going back to the whole storyline. So I got fired in February, and so now we're here in July. I still have yet to find a job.
Yeah.
And when I first got fired, it was, off and on crying. It was like, oh, I'm like, pissed, mad, happy, sad, everything that you can think of for at least 2 weeks, I would say. I didn't want to be alone. I have my kids once a week. I'm divorced now, and I have my kids once a week, so every other week. Does that make sense? So I get them Sunday to Sunday every other week. So the Sundays
split 50% custody.
Right.
Basically.
So when I didn't have them, I wanted to make sure I was around people. I didn't want to be alone.
Sure.
So it was, what am I going to do? And I was actually offered a job the day after I got fired. I was offered a job to go and sell hunts. And I'm still talking to that guy, but he had told me at the time, he's like, I'm not going to be able to hire you until April because that's when we'll start really doing everything we need to do. I was like, okay, I looked at my bank account. I'm like, all right, I can manage. I could be off for, 2 months or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I was like, but anytime after that, it's going to be kind of getting it close. So he's like, okay, yeah, I understand. Well, I'm going through the whole process. It's, the middle of February when I get fired. And so I only got a month and a half. I'm going to be off. And then I'm going to start working again. And it was great salary. It was actually going to be like $25,000 more than I make, all of that.
Wow.
Well, I'm not really doing much on social media at the time because I was embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know because I know I didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't want. How do you?
It's your private life,
Yeah.
Ivana. Let me tell you something. I don't want no one going through all my personal business. I mean, quite frankly, there's nothing to be. Your private life is your private life, period. And this woman has had everything opened up in her life, and it's not fair to me. I don't think it's fair. I do not think it's fair. And so I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah. And it's a prejudge. People prejudge you a lot of times.
I mean, I've had people like basically just ghost me, run from me. People who called all the time, hey, can I get help on this ticket? Hey, can you go help my kid with a flat tire? Can you, like, all this stuff. And now I don't get any phone calls.
Wow.
I was actually told by somebody that I really admired, and I was like, hey, could you hire me? I'm very good at marketing. I can go back to, that aspect. And he's like, well, Ivana, it would be political suicide if I hired you. And it just kind of like threw me back because, like, I have come to realize who my real friends are, know? And the ones that are actually my friends now are the ones who actually reached out to me ever since this happened and said, I know you didn't do that. I know it's, BS. And I'm here for you. Anything you need. And I've, like, come to be really good friends with new people that when everybody else left, these people were like, hey, I got your back. I don't know you, but I got your back.
Well, and that's how you know who your real friends are. Mm-hmm. When things are good, anybody will have your back and be on your side. When things are bad and you're struggling, the ones that are still there are the ones that are real. Right. I believe that. It's
been definitely a roller coaster, and I'm not saying I still don't cry sometimes because I do. So I started getting on social media because I didn't have anything that was really like hitting off. So the whole job that I was telling you about, and April comes around, he's like, oh, well, we're just not ready. And like I said, I'm still talking to that guy. He still says, it's still going to happen, but we're in July. And so once April hit and I didn't have a job, I started like, what do I do now? So I went to social media and I started trying to show people who I really am, you know? And I would put on social media like how I didn't necessarily believe in citations. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You don't even realize how many people want to argue that. And they're like, well, you weren't a real trooper. You didn't do your job. I never said I didn't write citations. I said I didn't agree with it because I knew where to go and get 5 real quick tickets. Go to the the poor areas. They can't afford a license, insurance, tag, all of that, right? They're just trying to make it to the co-op to go to work, make something, right?
That's right.
And so I could go over there, pull one person over and get 5 tickets. And so at the highway patrol, most of the time it's 5 tickets a day, keeps the master sergeant away, right? Mm-hmm. And so, hey, you get 2 stops and you get 5 tickets each, 10 tickets, you're done for the day.
Yeah.
Okay? I didn't agree with that because my job or my personality is going back to protecting somebody, serving them, right? That is not serving the general public, especially if I were to write somebody in a more urban area, more wealthier section of Mississippi, and you give them a ticket for speeding because they were speeding, but they had all their other stuff in order, they would call somebody and you would get a phone call and say, hey, do you mind helping me on that ticket? Well, of course, you're going to help them on a ticket, right? So the ones who can afford it, they never had to pay for it. And the ones who can't pay for it, they're in an endless cycle of having to figure out how to either pay for food that week or pay off a ticket.
Right.
And so I didn't feel like it was just to do that. Did I do citations? Yes, absolutely. But I stuck to primarily speeding, and it was primarily in, Rankin County. And it was only, so if I wrote 10 tickets a day, it was 10 stops, And I would do no proof of insurance, stuff like that. But I would always tell the people, like, look, if you go get insurance, if you go get a tag, if you go get your license, as long as the judge is okay with it, I'll remand all these tickets. Because all I do is want you to be road ready, right? I want you not to get a ticket by other troopers that are not going to give you that courtesy.
Right.
So let me give you these tickets. You go get your stuff together, and the ball's in your court.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so I try to put on social media, that's who I really am. And then I slowly started getting into, well, I'm no longer with the Highway Patrol. I am a former state trooper, because I didn't want anybody to assume I was still in law enforcement and then I get in trouble for,
impersonating an officer or something.
So I have been on social media really since April, and that has been the only thing that has paid me.
Yeah, and you've grown it.
I have.
Shout out to you. How many TikTok people you got? Like 127,000?
I do. I have 127,000, and I think the projection is I should have 200,000 by October.
After this podcast, you're going to hit that girl. What you talking about?
I hope so.
Because we can link your TikTok to this video. And so that's been really sustaining you.
Yes, that's the only thing.
It's wonderful.
I have been hustling, basically, to get anything I can to survive. So I have cut all cost, like as much as possible, all costs. If I was paying an extra, Apple bill or something, something like that, or any type of subscription or something like that, I have cut everything. So that way I got the cost of living really low. So it doesn't it's not so much I have to survive. Right. So I got that as low as I can. And technically, I could go lower. I could try to sell my house and move in with my mom and sell my car and only keep one car, because I have two cars. One's paid off, one's not.
Yeah.
So, I could do all those. I could still go lower and not have any bills and still survive, keep going. But I also have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I don't want them being uprooted or change anything. I'm trying to keep everything as normal as possible, because all I have to do is, in my mind, is to survive until October.
Yeah.
And I actually looked
What's in October?
October is the Employee Appeal Board.
Gotcha.
So I have had all of this that I've been thinking about. Like, if I don't have a job, I even looked at going to law school, went and took my LSAT. I've got to do the writing portion in order to get the score for the LSAT. But I was trying to just survive until August so I can get in law school and get a student loan, and that would pay for the mortgage. Like, this is all the stuff I've been thinking about. And
you can't sit still, Ivana.
I had always wanted to be an attorney, and with all of this, I ended up really having a passion for employment law, and I wanted to get my law degree and then eventually get my master's in employment law, and I wanted to help other people that were wrongfully terminated like me.
Good for you.
So it goes back to that whole personality, and I just always want to help, always want to protect. Yeah. And I felt like maybe this is what God was leading me to in a crazy way. But right now, like I said, I got to do my writing portion of LSAT, and I still got to do a few things to see if I can get into law school in August. But I'm still focused on October too, because I have had a couple of courts, I've had one, but throughout this whole process, I will end up having to go through a couple, court dates.
Sure.
So I put on social media that May 30th is whenever I had that temporary restraining order court date. And so May 30th comes and she doesn't show up. So, and I will never say her name. And with that court, we actually agreed that we won't say her name, even though her name is public record. What we decided in court on May 30th, we said, you know what, for this federal lawsuit, which I guess we'll get into in just a second, she wanted to remain anonymous, right? Yeah. So we were like, okay, we'll go with you wanting to remain anonymous, even though you've already put your name out there and stuff like that. And honestly, I think, in my opinion, the reason why that was initially done is because she wanted to put my name out there. Because before, it wasn't being reported who I was on these gossip columns and the news story and stuff like that. But when she put my name on a public document, it's public record. Right. So then they started reporting who I actually was. They wouldn't report her because she's the supposed victim, right? So I have had to bear the burden of all of this on my shoulders because nobody says her name. And that's fine.
Except me.
Yeah. Well, Daily Mail said her name too.
And Daily Mail.
Yeah. But nobody else will, and that's fine. I honestly think that she just wanted to be rich and famous from all of this, or just that's who she is, and she just wanted to be mean to me. Yeah. And you never know, like you were talking about criminal mind and stuff like that. I don't want to say she has a criminal mind, but you never know what somebody's thinking, what is actually going on in their head. And so I will never know why she actually did this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense that if I really did something criminally to her and I really hurt her, why did she not go file a charge?
Yeah.
Instead,
that's right. No criminal charges here. These are civil cases.
Yeah, these are just civil. And she doesn't even show up for the temporary restraining order, but yet she still is going to continue the $11 million lawsuit. It kind of makes you wonder, like, oh, that looks like that was your whole intention, is trying to get money.
Yeah.
So I had that court, and that's been done, and I put it on social media. I don't hide about anything, and it's all because not only is it good content, it's one of those I just have to deal with it. But it's also I want people to see the other side.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into detail like I've already stated because nobody's going to believe everything.
Yeah.
But to put it out there saying, hey, I'm a former state trooper. I'm not going to hide it, And I know a lot of people are like, you are crazy. Why are you on social media talking about this? Most people would run and hide. They would stay low, lay low. I'm not going to.
Yeah. I got mad respect for that, actually. Because, most people would. And that's why those things happen, because people just assume that you're going to be intimidated, that you're going to go away, that you're just going to do, the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze for you to fight that out. Right. You ain't like that.
Well, I think they thought I was.
I think they did too.
And I surprised them, But yeah, I'm doing stuff on social media. I've done a modeling gig. I did a photo shoot for General Lee replica.
Yes, I saw that. I
did. I enjoyed that. And then I do a defensive driving class. Yep. I did one Saturday, and I got another one coming up and all that. But those things are not every week. They're not every month.
And you have a store.
I do. I have a store. That has been very slow, and unfortunately, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep that, to be honest. And it's just one of those. Oh, I know. And it's just one of those, all of this going on. I just moved locations to that store in January. I was transferred out in January. Had to depend on my manager to kind of help with getting the remodel done at the place and get our federal firearms license back. And we were hindered from getting our license back. And I won't go into too much detail on that one either, but that's something down the road I'll be able to talk about when the time is right.
Good.
And it took us all the way until the middle of April to get our license. So we were dead in the water.
Yeah, that's any business. I mean, you got to wait that long to sell your main product, so to speak.
And then it's been a lot of ups and downs trying to find a good gunsmith to stay and to be reliable, dependable. And gun sales, a lot of people think, guns are $600 plus, you're making a lot of money. No.
Yeah, there's no margin.
You might a store owner might get $100
Yeah.
off of a pistol.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's very low margin.
Yeah.
It's all volume.
Right.
The more you sell, the more money you're going
Right.
to make. You don't make it per gun, really, unless it's collectible guns or
Right.
something like that.
So, and I did everything at that store is on me. Like, I bought it with my own money. I didn't get a loan. So if I had to pack up, it's not, I guess, the end of the world. I don't owe anybody or anything. So I just don't know where I would put all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I know it can be successful. It's just I was about to start looking for a loan, you know, so that way I could get more inventory and not have to be so like tight with everything and all of this hit basically. And definitely not going to get a loan when you don't have a job,
Sure.
you know. So it has been very slow, and summertime's slow too. So I've been trying to see if I can't just make it to August. But to be honest, like with me having to really struggle with finding a job or really expand with social media, which social media has been doing really great, but I feel like it's going to get even better, but right now it's not guaranteed. And yes, I did great last month, but this month might not be so well.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got to figure everything out, and I can't afford to keep a store going. And the reason why I was trying to keep the store going, and I'm not working there, I have somebody that I pay.
Yeah.
The reason I do that is because he was prior military, and I know what it's like, obviously, to not have a job and to lose something that you enjoy doing. And he enjoys being up there. I don't want to make him go through what I have been through.
Yeah.
So I much rather pay him to stay up there and let me just find something else, you know? But it's one of those where eventually it's going to come down to I can't take bread off my own table to give to somebody else,
Right.
you know? That's the unfortunate fact or the truth behind being a business owner. You got to make hard decisions of, unfortunately, yes, I want to keep him there because he enjoys being there, but at the end of the day, I have to watch out for me and my kids.
That's right.
So I'm hoping we don't have to do that. I'm hoping something pops off, you know, and we can continue to grow the business and I can continue to grow social media. So I'm just kind of like doing anything I can to survive right now.
Yeah. And, you know, you've done a great job with your social for sure. I mean, you built that channel on TikTok, no easy feat. People think this stuff is easy. Let me tell you, building a podcast, building a TikTok, things like they are not easy. They're not easy. In podcasts, for example, it's a 94% failure rate. 94% never make a dime. You know, stay strong. I mean, the horizon is coming. It's, you know, and a lot of questions will be answered at that time. But you're an inspiration to a lot of people out there with your strength through all of this. And I respect that. And I think you're a pretty awesome person.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And so thank all of you for listening. And just quickly before we get out of here, I know it's crazy, but I got nominated for a People's Choice Podcast Award for Best Storyteller in a Drama Series. All you have to do is go to podcastawards.com and you sign up and it'll bring you to another page. You'll click a drop down arrow in that category and you will see Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite. Be totally honored to get your vote on that. It's the oldest podcast awards in the world, and it is also the only podcast award ceremony that goes off of the vote of the people. It is not a panel that selects the winners, and that's what matters to me, is that y'all are actually voting for me and choosing me to win that award, and I just love that. Love all of you. Check out Patreon if you haven't had the opportunity. We have a lot of stuff on there, bonus episodes. We have early commercial-free releases and all sorts of things that you can get, and it supports the show. And look, without those Patreon members, I wouldn't be here. There's no doubt about it. Show's just too expensive to run. So thank you very much for that. And until next time, I'm Jim Chapman, your host of Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite. Much love.